All right, what's up, gamers? It's Carrot. I'm back. Been a while, but it's time to get rowdy. This will be the raid guide for Fury. I'm actually still not done mythic raiding yet. We're on Tindral, but I can at least give the rundown for general raid stuff. This isn't gonna be like individual bosses, just more like a general talent guide, gear setup, and whatnot. So best thing to start with, I guess, is the talents. Now, this one specifically is more so just like purely single target, right? So you're gonna want to use this on Volcoross and Smolderon and even Nymue or Nymue, however you pronounce that. So yeah, Volcoross, Nymue, and Smolderon, you will use this build. Now when there's the Cleave fights, this is where you swap here, right? Sorry, this is not exactly the setup. Now, let's say general purpose, we're just looking at like let's say we're just looking at Igira, for example, right? Right after Gnarlroot, or even Gnarlroot, we would use this, to be honest. I don't know what I'm talking about. Gnarlroot, you'd use this build. It lines up your CDs, and then even with the burst phase, you'll have the roar during the damage amp phase. Igira, this build is also very well for spears and stuff like that. It's a really good single target as well. And then you can also use this build on Council of Dreams as well. Most parses for warriors, if you look on Council, will actually be arms warriors, just because the 2-target cleave is much better. But if you really don't care about arms and you don't want to play it, just play this build on Fury. It works just fine. Then you would also use this exact same build for Larodar. This works very well in Larodar. You usually will have Thunder's Roar, Avatar, and Wreck for most of the ad phases that come out. And then you should also get CDs during the execute phase. Pretty well on time there. And now, like, this build really only works on Gnarlroot, Igira, Council, Larodar. And then the other build, the Spear Bastion build, like I said, single target goes Volcoross, Nymue, and Smolderon. Now, when you get into Tindral and Fyrakk territory, the cooldown timings are a bit different. It's like specifically when the ad phases happen, right? So this is where you want to change 1 point in cruel strikes here to get the 30-second cooldown reduction on your Thunder's Roar. It'll help the lineup better with roots on Tindral. And then you can drop this Pain and Gain. Most of the time, warriors are pretty safe. It's a bit difficult to die in raid. Same thing with M+. It's pretty difficult for a warrior to actually just die from like rot damage. It's pretty difficult. So you can drop Pain and Gain, and you take Wrecking Throw, because when you're going through the phases on Tindral, there's a shield break. And if you hit this in your avatar and all your buffs and stuff, usually you're lusting on the first shield, you will basically have about, it could be 300 to like 450,000 damage in one hit, if you're hitting the shield. So, I mean, if you take that in account, you're only pressing it maybe twice, I think twice during the whole fight. But 1 GCD for up to 400 plus thousand damage. That's basically, you know, a fully buffed Blood Surge crit. So Wrecking Throw is pretty strong on shields. And you need a shield break, so take that on Tindral. You run the same build on Fyrakk as well. So, because this also helps line up with the CDs better, and you can use that. If you really don't want to use Wrecking Throw, you can put in Pain and Gain, but like I said, this is pretty good for a one button, you know, instant cast. Just hit big damage on shield. Yeah. These are pretty much the talents, like I said. I can link these in the description. You're basically going to swap between the single target Spirit Bastion build, and then when you're on the other earlier bosses, you run the standard build, and then Tindral and Fyrakk will be this. All right, next step, we will take a look at the gear. Currently, I am relatively geared pretty well, I would say. I'm only missing 489 rings and a 489 neck and belt, and then obviously I would need to socket the next belt I get, and you know, fill out sockets. But yeah, pretty much for all gear, it's very similar to what I said in the Mythic Plus guide. If you haven't watched that, if you're interested in Mythic Plus, I would say go check that out. But gear verse mastery is scaling very well for us right now. So it has to do with, you know, like the new diminishing returns on stats and all that, etc. Like I said before, though, I'm not exactly the most knowledgeable on the number stuff and the math, but I just play warrior. But yeah, verse mastery very strong for us right now. You can also put a decent amount of interest in crit for sure, but most of the time crit is carried by just having secondary crit on certain pieces of gear, and then Ice File or Corrupting Rage is very good. But the other problem, if you are dying with Corrupting Rage, I would recommend taking Tepid Verse. But if you know you're not going to die on a raid fight to this dot, then use it. Or you know, sim your character, which file's better, but it's almost universally the crit file is better. Now, in terms of trinkets, these should be your best trinkets. Even Signet Brand on like normal difficulty, normal eye level, is still very strong. Augury is it's best in slot. You want this 100%. I know it's a very rare trinket, so not everyone has access to it, unfortunately. But you want to get these two trinkets as much as possible. There is an argument to be made that Might of the Ocean is pretty good on certain fights, even single target. I would say use this. You could use this on Gnarlroot, for example. You know, you want to pad on ads as well. Or even during like the amp damage phase, this can give you a pretty significant chunk of damage during the damage amp. But you can even argue that on the damage amp on Smolderon, this could be pretty good. But I think even on Smolderon, I would run the Signet Brand, especially if it's mythic, higher item level. Like, you get main stat and the dot. If you get lucky, the ramp damage is insane. But yeah, these are generally your two trinket setups. I know a lot of people early in the season were using the Razan's trinket. I never actually got that. Wasn't lucky enough to get that. But if you do have that as your single target trinket, this is usually pretty strong compared to Signet. But these should be your best in slots. Like I say, go sim, you know, do drop demizer or gear compare, sim your character. But these should be your best single target and even, you know, cleave fights. Because both of these trinkets work in AoE situations and single target. Yeah, that's basically it with the stats. First mastery is very strong. Make sure you still have enough haste though. But I use wafting devotion because I'm very low on haste and it sims very well. It'll probably still be bis for me, wafting. But like I said, important thing, I will probably say it a lot. Sim your character. Very helpful to know what stats you need. Alright. In terms of defensive CDs, I went over this in the Mythic Plus video as well. A little slightly different for raid. But pretty much every AoE damage is compatible with spell reflection DR. I'm pretty sure almost all AoE damage in raid is going to be magic damage. So spell reflect will be very, very good for you. I pretty much use this all the time. Like example on Nymue. When the plants are up and doing AoE damage dot, you can just DR that. You can use this on Smolderon all the time. You can like fire damage, you know. It's pretty much just anytime when in doubt and you're taking a bunch of AoE damage in a raid fight, slam some Spell Reflect on there. Just press it on cooldown if you have to. If you can't like figure out exactly when you need it. It's almost always going to give you value, defensive value. Now, of course, Enraged Regen is a very powerful healing cooldown. It gives you insane DR. Your Bloodthirst heals you, which you're pressing almost all the time. This, you know, whenever you're going to take big damage, whenever you need to heal yourself, you're down a healer during a prog fight, end of, you know, your execute phase, you got to stay alive as long as possible. This is your cooldown. This is bread and butter. This thing's insane. It's an amazing cooldown. It makes your Bloodthirst give you 23% healing, I believe, on each hit. Yeah, that's pretty crazy. That's pretty crazy. But yeah, defensive cooldowns. You know, rallies there. Your healers should probably, you know, tell you when they want to use it to line up with their cooldowns. But rally's not as strong as it used to be. It's still good though. Don't forget it. Don't forget about it. I'm guilty of doing that as well. But yeah, overall, you can dispense as well. But Warrior is very tanky. It's quite difficult to die on accident. You know, unless you're actively walking in mechanics, it's pretty difficult to die. Especially if you're running extra leech, even avoidance. You're pretty unkillable. All right. So we can go into the single target rotation and the semi-multi-target rotation. It's gonna... I can't exactly explain certain timings for each specific boss, but I can run down the rotation of how you would do the single target. So this one's a bit confusing. You know, Spear Bastion's a little annoying to play around with. Especially on fights like Smolderon where you're moving constantly. It's a lot easier to use on like Nymue and Volcoross. Those are pretty stationary fights where you have a lot of opportunities to stand still. One thing you can do though, if you're really in a situation where you have to stand in Spear Bastion and tank something, usually you can live with Enraged Regen and just heal through certain mechanics. Like on Smolderon, you can, if you play it correctly, I wouldn't recommend doing it on like a progression pull, but you can definitely use Enraged Regen to cheese some DPS in certain areas. Yeah, let's get the single target rotation. It's very similar to like Mythic Plus and other things like that. This warrior tier set, it's very straightforward in most aspects, right? But so it's gonna have the typical opener. You're gonna charge, recklessness, rampage to get your enrage up. Then you're gonna open up with Odin's Fury. Get your pot up, obviously, when you charge. And throw your Spear Bastion. Then you're gonna Bloodthirst, Rampage, Bloodthirst, Rampage, and then Avatar. And then Bloodthirst, Rampage, Bloodthirst, Rampage. Pretty much back and forth. So it's basically... that timing should allow you to get the best dancing up or dancing blades uptime, while also keeping the maximum avatar uptime in the Spear Bastion window. And you'll hit massive Bloodthirst crits in Spear Bastion. Just absolutely massive because of this talent, which gives you 25% extra crit damage in your Spear Bastion while you're standing in it. It's pretty powerful. It's just, if you're not used to playing with Spear Bastion, it's very, very annoying sometimes. Alright, so let's get this opener here. Let me Spear Bastion, Bloodthirst, Rampage, Bloodthirst, and then we open up, boom, Avatar, Bloodthirst, Rampage. Now, it's going to feel different here because I don't have a Lust, you know? Most of the time, in all the Spear Bastion fights, you're going to be lusting on pole usually. So you'll get more Bloodthirst in that, you know, Spear Bastion window. But that's basically it right there. That's basically the opener. I can try to put a visual up on screen maybe, perhaps. I can see if I can do that for you. But yeah, that's basically the rundown there of how to do the single target. Now, when we're going into the multi-target rotation, can't actually show you yet. But when you're going into the multi-target rotation, it's very similar to what we just did there. Like, you always open up a charge, recklessness, rampage, and then you send all your shit, right? So like, for example, you'd want to do that on Gnarlroot. Just open up. Your cooldowns will still line up with the ad phases, so it's better for... I've had better success just sending cooldowns at the start, like that, for example. But I can show you how you would open up a fight, right? Now, like I said, this is a bit more difficult to explain per boss because I'm just going to do just a general rundown here. Even on AoE fights or Cleave fights as well, you want to keep dancing blades, even on the Dragon's Roar, because this is where your AoE is going to come from. You get the Meat Cleaver and Dragon's Roar, so that's pretty much enough, right? But even if you're going into a Cleave boss fight, you still want to do the single target rotation, most part. You'll have to figure out the Cleave timings as you go. Every raid team's going to get to mechanics of, you know, slower or faster than others, depending on just your raid composition, right? So let's say you're going in on a Cleave boss, and you just want to send a single target at the start. It's the same opener: charge, recklessness, rampage. You can do that. Odin's Fury into Roar, and then we rampage, bloodthirst, avatar, and then rampage, bloodthirst, over and over. It's just like the Mythic Plus rotation, pretty much. Now, if you're looking to find out more specific timings of CDs for, let's say, you know, Cleave fights, you know, when ads come up and everything like that, I would recommend studying Warcraft logs. Take a look at Warriors logs. You can even, I don't know, look at my logs if you want. Basically, timings will differ per boss. If that's something people may want to look at, want me to make a video about specific boss fights and how to run those, I can certainly do that. But that rotation, it's going to be the same for this as well. If you're just going in to send CDs on pull, you would just, the roar's just on a shorter cooldown, but it's the same way to apply the damage. But yeah, if people are interested in me doing a more specific boss fight thing, per boss guide, I can attempt to do that and see what I can come up with if that's something people are very interested in. But for now, this is just, general basis of, give you a little pointers on how to play Fury and Raid. Basically, yeah, that's like the rotation. I hope I made that clear enough to see how it's used there. Like I said, the Thunderous Roar opener and rotation is basically the same as if you're playing Mythic Plus, right? It's pretty much the same stuff. But when you're going in single target with Spirit Bastion, that's where it can be a bit confusing and complicated, just because of how the nature of how Spirit Bastion is. That it just makes, it's such a stationary ability, right? So, yeah, that's pretty much it for the rotation aspect. Like I said, make sure you sim your character, check your gear. First mastery, very powerful. Still want some haste though. Crit. All the stats are pretty good, to be honest. If you're dying to like AoEs, you can swap avoidance on your wrist and back piece. But I've been trying out leech, just a lot of healing. But mainly whatever you're dying to, right? You're dying to rot damage or big AoEs. Switch between avoidance and leech there. But yeah, that's basically it. I said I try to do this as general as possible. But if people are interested in other guides or anything like that, let me know. I will try to get out the arms M plus and raid guide as well. Haven't played much arms on other fights other than, Volcoross or console. Arms just hasn't been as powerful as Fury this tier. Just because Fury is just so, it's just so safe. It's very, very good at healing itself and surviving, while also having easy access to cleave damage and amazing single target damage. So for a warrior, so it's pretty good. Fury's pretty good. So I hope this guide gave you a better idea how to play Fury and Raid. Obviously, tell me if you think I missed anything important, or if there's something I can explain better, or if you want individual boss guides and stuff like that. But other than that, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I'll try to get more out soon, and have a good one.